I'm so excited to introduce Navina Khanna and award her one of Food Tank's Bright Spots in the Food System Awards. As you heard this morning, the Bright Spot Award is for individuals and organizations committed to highlighting stories of hope and success and developing innovations that nourish both people and the planet. Navina is the director of the Heal Food Alliance and a fellow for the California Movement Strategy Center. And she has been quoted saying, "If it isn't daunting, it isn't worth doing." So it's no surprise that she has been instrumental in amplifying the power of young people and communities who are changing and reshaping the food system. Navina is an educator, a community organizer, and a policy advocate. And as the director of HEAL, she's working to highlight how food is deeply rooted in national security, healthcare, and income inequality, something especially timely during this election year. Thank you so much, Navina, for your hard work and your dedication to a fair and sustainable food system. Please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
His name was Terrence Crutcher. He was a 40-year-old black man. He was a brother, a son, and a father of 4. He loved to sing in church. He was driving home from his music appreciation class at Tulsa Community College when his SUV broke down in the middle of the street. He was unarmed and had his hands up. He was shot dead in the middle of the street. As the police circled the scene and the helicopter above, one of them was recorded as saying, "That looks like a big bad dude. He could be on something." His name was Terrence Crutcher. I want to honor him, Terrence Crutcher. I want to honor Keith Lamont Scott, who was reading a book in his car while waiting for his son to finish school. I want to honor Tyre King, a 13-year-old boy. 3 black people killed in the last week, who are among the many who have joined the ancestors too soon at the hands of the state. By some counts, cops have killed 69 people in the 23 days since Kaepernick began protesting, including a protester in North Carolina last night. The average is that every 28 hours, a black person is killed by police. This is egregious. It should never happen again. Yet it's nothing new. It's simply a story that's finally being told. A veil is being lifted. The war on black people takes many forms, and for those of us who work in food and agriculture, we can see it in many ways. In the prison industrial complex that puts inmates to work on penal farms for little to no wages. We see it in lack of access to land, in foreclosures on land, on farms and homes. In Oakland, where I live, the New York Times called our city one of the best places to eat. But despite the hip new restaurants and the burgeoning local food scene, diet-related chronic disease is still the leading cause of death in low-income communities, which are mostly communities of color. This is part of our story, and who holds power in our story matters. If we want to see transformative change in our food system, we absolutely must invest in leadership on the front lines. Our movement must ground in the struggles that are real, that are faced by people who bear the brunt of the negative consequences of our destructive food system every day. The word apocalypse comes from Greek, and it literally translates to uncovering or revealing, lifting the veil. It's time for us to lift the veil and start uncovering the whole story and hearing the whole story and telling the whole story of our food system. And the story of our food system is that it's a system that was founded on genocide, on land that was stolen from Native people, on the abduction and forced migration and enslavement of African people. It's a system that persists through a militarized border and threats of deportation to workers who face wage theft, sexual harassment, repetitive stress injuries. If we had made different choices throughout history, our story might look different today. But today, the system thrives on the backs of its 20 million workers, who holds 6 of the 8 worst paying jobs in this country. It's a system that produces at least a third of our greenhouse gas emissions and is sucking this state dry. We've heard a little bit about this today already, but it's a system that concentrates power in the hands of a few, right? With 5 companies controlling our grocery stores and 4 controlling our meat industry, and with the new Bayer-Monsanto merger, just 1 controlling 59% of the world's seeds. Now, we know that whoever controls our air and our water and our land and our seeds and our resources, that's who controls our lives. And our system is based on exploitation of life, of land and of labor. And this exploitation right now is literally driving us to extinction. But life is sacred. So what if we loved ourselves enough and each other enough to live a new story together? So I want to invite everyone in this room to actually imagine a new story with me. So a reality where vacant lots in cities can become vibrant gardens, where communities have family farms and rural economies are thriving, where friends and family come together over traditional foods, and where workers are owners that are actually in control of their own destiny. And in this new story, all people have access to food that's truly nourishing. In my new story, we foster a social culture that reflects our agriculture, where diversity is our strength, where young people and old people work together, and both interdependence and self-reliance are valued. Now, imagine if we lived in a society where we were actually able to care for ourselves and each other and the land that we live on, where everyone had the right and the means to thrive, to produce and to procure their own food without any exploitation to them. Imagine that we can steward our land and our water and our seeds and our resources and our health, and we are truly able to govern and live free of threats from the state. Sometimes it seems like our future is just limited by our imagination. A teacher of mine recently said, and I think it's true, that it's easier for many of us to imagine the end of the world than it is for us to imagine the end of capitalism. Now, we can look at our brothers and sisters in Standing Rock for an example of what it means to root in values that protect the land, protect our water, and center frontline leadership. In that case, it's indigenous leadership, and what it means to organize allies around centering that leadership. And we know that the transformation that we want is not currently politically possible. It's going to take all of us to make it so. But politics are shaped by culture, and it's going to take all of us to make a cultural shift to make a new story real, a collective vision that can actually act as our North Star that we can move towards together. But we can't buy our way or eat our way or tweak our way toward justice, right? We can organize, though. Biologists say that the best way to heal an ecosystem is to connect it to more of itself. And for too long, our movement ecosystem has actually operated very much like our food and agriculture systems, right? Like monoculture, where we are working in our own silos, we're working on our own pieces of the puzzle, we're working for change, and often getting pitted against each other and fighting for crumbs. But the truth is that each of us has a role to play. As we center the leadership of frontline communities and the solutions that they're creating, each of us has a role to play in bringing our own strengths and our skills and our resources and expertise to the table. And being a part of a strategic and effective movement actually requires our ability to see ourselves as part of an ecosystem. And I'd say that our survival depends on our ability to do that. To be able to share in a story that actually values life and sees all of our struggles as one. Now, none of us can do everything, but all of it needs to be done. So we actually need to divide the labor among us, embrace our best, and trust each other to do our best work. But we can only have that different future if we actually start relating differently to each other now. And so we're about to go to lunch. And as you sit down to lunch, I actually want to invite all of you to sit with each other and talk with each other about what that new story can look like, what our new future can look like, and start building the kinds of relationships that we need to be able to see ourselves together moving forward into that future. It's time for us to actually write that new story together and walk together into that different future. So I want to invite everybody to join together in doing that. Thank you.
opportunity to give Navina her award and thank her again for her commitment to making the food system better for everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's what it was.